Hey everyone, it's Kevin. Welcome back to the channel. So this video is kind of a part 2 from the one that I put out last week, which is the real problem with social media for creatives. In that video, I really wanted to examine what that was because there's so many ways to go about it. But I know it's long, so I'm just gonna recap it for this video. So social media, the social platforms, at least the big ones, they're not really made for creatives. They're a business where the model revolves around you and your data. Initially, it was free and they were fun, casual places to post our work, but to be viable and keep being a platform for years to come, they've needed a way to monetize. Now, the main goal for any social platform, especially if it is ad-based, is to keep people on their platform longer because that equates to money. I think for Meta's platforms, their algorithm is especially aggressive in making creators use specific formats and templates to make something engaging according to their analytics, which is not really conducive to genuine creativity or whatever you may want to make. So you have a different creative vision that may not lend itself to what Instagram wants, but to post on this platform and get some sort of visibility, you end up having to take that into consideration. This doesn't just apply to Meta's platforms, but applies to any social platform out there today. Their main goal is to increase their number of users to keep people on their platform longer. These companies are going to further their own priorities and they may not necessarily have your best interests in mind. So I know that a lot of people aren't happy with Instagram or other social platforms and they're jumping ship to alternatives like Kara. But if that platform doesn't have a way to monetize with a sort of subscription or a premium, they're gonna have to find a way to adapt somehow in order to stay competitive. So the real problem is not recognizing what social media has become and still thinking that it's just a fun place to post. Obviously, it's the most accessible way to reach millions of people on the internet, but it's important to exercise caution, especially considering the landscape nowadays. As much as we'd like to think there are certain websites and platforms that are safe for our data, for our art, and for whatever we create, in order for them to stay competitive, they need to integrate some sort of an AI strategy into their business growth plan. And unfortunately, that means they'll have to use whatever we created in ways that we didn't expect them to do so, which is really unfortunate because, again, the way that social media started, they were just casual, fun places to post our work. And I don't think a lot of people were aware of the implications of what your data meant in terms of like a currency or the way that it's being used for AI now. So it's more about understanding that it's a risk. Obviously, it's always been a risk to post on social media, but it's even more so now, and going to a place or a platform where you feel comfortable taking that risk. So with people thinking about other alternatives or moving to other platforms, I wanted to make this video because this is something that I think a lot of creatives can run into, which is going viral. And that could either be a great thing or a bad thing, but in my case, it hasn't really been the best thing for me. There was a lot of learnings that I had to go through about it, and I've learned how to position myself in a way that makes me happy. But I think at the time that it happened, it was awesome, but I think like the after effects were really hard for me as a creative and as a creator. So this happened to me on both YouTube and on Instagram. For YouTube, I started this channel back in 2020, and initially it was a way for me to like experiment with different creative mediums. I had gone laid off from my job, and I talk about this a little in my layoff video, so if you want to check it out, feel free to find the link below. But I was in a role that was a lot more producer oriented, so I wasn't doing a lot of like hands-on stuff, and I really wanted to get back to designing and creating and using those programs. So in an effort to like get back into it, I started a YouTube channel that really focused on creative experimentation. So a few of my first videos were like learning Procreate or, experimenting with hand lettering, or I think I even have like bracelet making and like making like handcrafts. And I also did a lot of creative coding, like learning Python and even learning generative AI back when it was really primitive, doing a lot of experiments there. But I really wanted to move into trying to update my craft and get better at, I don't know, digital art. So that was like a really big thing for me, just how to take new creative mediums, new technologies, and use them for creative purposes. And another part of that was 3D. I had always wanted to learn 3D. I tried Cinema 4D a few years ago, but I just could never get into it. So I was thinking of trying Cinema 4D again, but on YouTube, there were so many resources on Blender, and I thought maybe I should just give this one a shot. And Blender was awesome. Like, it was so much fun to learn. I knew that a lot of people said like the learning curve was a little bit difficult, but honestly, like, all the resources on YouTube were great. So I decided to film myself for 45 days of learning Blender, and that was just doing like a bunch of different tutorials and then even incorporating a lot of my own projects. And that video ended up taking off, which was really exciting at the time because, again, like, I hadn't started a YouTube channel. I didn't really have a social following anywhere, and it was just like really exciting to see the numbers go up. I remember like it would just keep climbing and climbing, and got a bunch of followers, and it was awesome. But I didn't realize that it was going to kind of position my channel in a specific niche. And that's not necessarily a bad thing because, like, again, if you like that niche, then more power to you. But I think for me, I was still in this process of like exploring what I liked creatively, and I wasn't necessarily wanting to like go all in Blender. I thought about using Blender in a way that was like a calming process video, and my favorite video at the time was this Studio Ghibli inspired scene, and I really wanted to like continue down that route. But I think that a lot of people really expected a specific aesthetic from me, a specific video format, and I ended up losing a lot of followers. I wanted to create things that I wanted to create, but at the time it was kind of discouraging because, you know, I had gotten a lot of growth, but then I was just losing it just as quickly. So because of that, it really influenced my creative trajectory from what I was doing before to like really focusing solely on Blender. I think it really caused a lot of burnout for me, like down the way, because again, my initial intent was to just experiment with different creative mediums, and I really wasn't doing what I set out to do. And I think it's really important that if you start a channel, if you start anything and you are creative with the intent to share your work or share your art, that you create something that you're proud of, as opposed to really just creating something for numbers or for metrics, because it's not in the end going to garner the audience that makes YouTube special. This can happen to any kind of video that you put out. You may, you know, take the same approach that I did, and then you'll put out a video that's a little bit different from the one that you put before that, and you'll lose followers. It's important just to not get discouraged, because throughout each video that you put out, you'll end up gaining the audience that you truly want, and you know, you'll be able to rebuild. But I think for me, it took a long time in order to get there, and I'm starting to feel comfortable with, you know, experimenting outside of what made me get bigger 3 years ago. For Instagram, I think at the time I started my YouTube channel, I was around like 3,000 followers, and I grew slowly as my channel grew. So for that, I would actually just repost a lot of the stuff that I made for my channel, maybe retrofit it in a vertical format, and then post it onto Instagram. But I started to want to make process videos similar to what I was doing on my channel, and that was really fun because I really enjoy showing a process from start to finish. But I know in some of them, I would end up focusing on like a specific aspect of those process videos because I knew that they would give me growth on my Instagram, and that was just simply drawing with grease pencil. Like, grease pencil in and of itself is just a really cool tool. Being able to like draw in 3D space is pretty mind-bending. I think if you're not a person that has seen this tool in action or even knows it exists, like, it's, as you're scrolling, it's just something that's like, whoa, like, how is that even possible? So those are the Blender wizards at work there. But I think for me, it was something that I would end up repeatedly focusing on because I knew that it would give me a lot of likes or views. And I think even for one of them, I ended up getting over like 1 million views on it. And I don't think that was necessarily a bad thing, but I think subsequently, just like the problem with YouTube, a lot of the people that I had gained from that post were really expecting me to take a specific creative direction or use a specific format. And it was really unfortunate because when I would start to post the full-size pieces of my work, it would never really get as much traction as like, the specific action that I was doing with Grease Pencil. For Instagram and the other scroll-based platforms, this isn't really a great thing because you're kind of expected to just repeat that format or thing that people initially followed you for. And it was really hard for me to feel comfortable posting things not associated with like a Grease Pencil process reel. I was always super self-conscious of like, is this going to perform well, or is this going to be like okay response wise? And I didn't like that internal turmoil that I was going through and having to post. Now I'm at a better place with both of those platforms and with my approach, and I'm really trying to prioritize being genuine to my creative process. But when I was learning all of this, it was kind of difficult to grow out of that. I really want a quality audience because the reason why I started on these platforms in the first place was to connect with people. And I want to make sure that I continue that trend, and through whatever growth that I'm going through, I make sure to keep that at the forefront. Obviously, everyone's goal is different, but I think for many on social media, their intention is to build something. Just remember, wherever you go, what you put out there is your product, whether that be an art style or a brand. It's how people will perceive you, and it'll influence a lot of the opportunities that come your way. Anyways, I hope this was helpful for anyone thinking about building something. Let me know if you have any questions or comments, and if this has happened to you, let me know as well. Thanks again, and see you guys next time.